The frozen tarmac of Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson in Anchorage, Alaska became the unlikely stage for the most anticipated diplomatic encounter of the decade on August 15, 2025. U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin met face-to-face for the first time since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, a summit brimming with military pomp but ultimately devoid of substantive breakthroughs. This marked Putin's first visit to American soil in 10 years and his first trip to any Western nation since the outbreak of hostilities in Ukraine, making the event as symbolically charged as it was strategically ambiguous. A ceremonial show of strength. The summit commenced with a carefully choreographed display of American military might that sent mixed diplomatic signals. As Putin's motorcade approached the base, the skies above Anchorage roared with the thunder of F-35 fighter jets and the ominous silhouette of a B-2 stealth bomber, a simultaneous demonstration of U.S. military superiority and an unexpectedly warm welcome for a leader currently indicted by the International Criminal Court for war crimes. The red carpet reception, complete with full military honors, provided Russian state media with triumphant footage of their president being welcomed back onto the global stage after years of isolation. Behind closed doors, the illusion of progress. For 3 hours in a secure conference room, the two leaders engaged in what both would later characterize as productive discussions. However, the summit failed to produce its most anticipated deliverables. No ceasefire agreement emerged, no timeline for peace talks was established, and no new sanctions were announced against Russia. Instead, President Trump appeared to adopt language remarkably aligned with long-standing Kremlin positions, shifting his public stance from demanding a Russian withdrawal to advocating direct negotiations between Moscow and Kyiv, a move that effectively relieved pressure on Putin while increasing it on Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The Phantom Deal, Russia's territorial demands. Sources familiar with the closed-door discussions revealed that Putin presented Trump with a proposal that would require Ukraine to permanently cede control of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions in exchange for a freeze in fighting along other fronts, particularly in southern Ukraine. This proposal, which would legitimize Russian territorial gains through military aggression, was subsequently communicated by Trump to Zelensky in a private phone call where the American president reportedly urged the Ukrainian leader to make a deal. Zelensky's office immediately issued a statement rejecting any agreement that would compromise Ukraine's territorial integrity. The post-summit theater, smiles without substance. The carefully managed press conference that followed the meeting lasted just 11 minutes, with neither leader fielding questions from journalists. Trump, appearing visibly fatigued, described the discussions as extremely productive, while Putin praised the constructive atmosphere and claimed the two had reached a nominal understanding. This vague diplomatic language masked what analysts quickly recognized as a strategic victory for Moscow. Putin had secured high-profile engagement with the American president without making any meaningful concessions, while Trump had abandoned previous demands for Russian withdrawal in favor of pushing Ukraine toward negotiations on Moscow's terms. Global reactions. Cautious optimism meets deep skepticism. European leaders responded with measured statements emphasizing the necessity of Ukraine's full participation in any peace process. German Chancellor Merz and other EU officials reiterated their rejection of any territorial changes achieved through military force and stressed the importance of security guarantees for Ukraine. The planned follow-up meeting between Trump and Zelensky in Washington, potentially including European representatives, now looms as the next critical juncture in this diplomatic dance. The strategic calculus. Who gained what? The immediate aftermath reveals several clear outcomes. Putin achieved his primary objective of breaking Western isolation without compromising his military position in Ukraine. Trump appeared to soften America's stance, moving from coercive diplomacy to accommodation. Ukraine found itself under increased pressure to make concessions despite maintaining battlefield positions. European allies were largely sidelined in a process that increasingly appears to be a bilateral U.S.-Russia negotiation about Ukraine's future. The continuing reality on the ground. Even as the leaders posed for handshake photos in Alaska, Russian forces intensified attacks across multiple fronts in Ukraine, from Sumy in the north to Dnipropetrovsk in the center and Donetsk in the east. This simultaneous escalation underscored the disconnect between diplomatic theater and military reality, with Putin demonstrating his willingness to pursue both tracks simultaneously.